Hello, greetings, and welcome to this channel. If it's your first time here, a real warm welcome to you. Today I want to introduce and recommend another book, and I'm also going to tell you about another spiritual leader and hopefully read you a section from the beginning of the book. So the book is The Practice of the Presence of God. And this was it's a collection of letters and notes and writings by a man over 300 years ago. You'll learn a little bit about him in the first section, so I won't duplicate it here. But many people, I myself agree, that his spiritual practice is worthwhile and that it works sometimes for people who don't do well with meditation or don't like meditation for some reason. And by meditation, I'm referring to a sitting meditation, not discursive meditation where you think about words, but where you sit in silence and attempt to bypass your thinking and enter a higher consciousness. Some people really struggle with that. This is a little bit different, and I think that you'll like it. So the book begins with 4 conversations and then I think 13 letters of his. My copy also has a short biography written by his best friend, but that is not in all of the books. So here's the first conversation with Brother Lawrence, and it explains his spirituality and a little bit about his life. I met Brother Lawrence for the first time today. He told me that God had been especially good to him in his conversion. He was 18 at the time and still in the world. He told me that it had all happened one winter day. As he was looking at a barren tree. Although the tree's leaves were gone indeed, he knew that they would soon reappear, followed by blossoms and then fruit. And this gave him a profound impression of God's providence and power, which never left him. So many people seem to have spiritual experiences in nature, don't they? Especially with trees. So I have some videos, and I think I can put a link in the description box to the first practice that I recommend for people is going out in nature and observing and being silent and making friends with a tree. So Brother Lawrence still maintains that this impression detached him entirely from the world and gave him such a great love for God that it hasn't changed at all in the 40 years he's been walking with him. Brother Lawrence had formerly been a servant to the treasurer of the monastery and had been very clumsy. He believed that in order to be saved, he would have to be punished for his clumsiness. Thus, he sacrificed all of the pleasures in his life to God. However, rather than punishing him, God gave him nothing but wholehearted satisfaction. He would tell the Lord endearingly and often that he felt deceived because his Christian walk had thus far been so pleasant and not filled with the suffering he had anticipated. I like Brother Lawrence. Some people just love to suffer. And I don't believe God is bringing suffering upon you for your sins. He wants you, if you're living a life that is you think is wrong, to change. And then he will reward you. So Brother Lawrence insisted that to be constantly aware of God's presence, it is necessary to form the habit of continually talking with him throughout the day. Now, of course, Brother Lawrence is a Christian. He's in a monastery. He's a lay brother in a monastery. And even if he were not, at the time of writing, they always use the masculine pronoun. And in Christianity and Judaism, where the writings personify God, they use the pronouns he and him. You may think of God in some other way, and you can just substitute your own pronoun. To think that we must abandon conversation with him in order to deal with the world is erroneous. Instead, as we nourish our souls by seeing God in his exaltation, we will derive great joy at being his. So that was a hint about his practice. Here's more. Another thing he mentioned was that our faith is too weak. Instead of letting faith rule our lives, we're guided by our petty, everyday, mechanical prayers, which are always changing. And the church's only road to the perfection of Christ is faith. So he's paramount. Got your faith in this higher power God, and he wants you to talk to God throughout the day. The dear brother remarked that we must give ourselves totally to God in both temporal and spiritual affairs. Our only happiness should come from doing the Lord's will, whether it brings us some pain or great pleasure. After all, if we're truly devoted to doing God's will, pain and pleasure won't make any difference to us. So his faith has brought him to a position of seeking the divine will, and once he understands it, he's going to do it, no matter whether he thinks it's going to be painful, whether he's going to like it or not. We also need to be faithful even in the dry periods. That's spiritually dry periods. It is during these dry spells that God tests our love for him. We should take advantage of these times to practice our determination and our surrender to him. This will often bring us to a maturity further on in our walk with God. People often call these times of dryness in their spirituality the dark night of the soul. And if you Google search that, you'll find information about that concept. Brother Lawrence wasn't surprised by the amount of sin and unhappiness in the world. Rather, he wondered why there wasn't more, considering the extremes to which the enemy is capable of going. And again, if you've read the Bible, you know that in there it personifies the enemy as the devil or demons or evil spirits. It's the personification of evil. And he says there's so much evil tempting people, he's surprised the world isn't worse. He said he prayed about it, but because he knew God could rectify the situation in a moment if he willed it, he didn't allow himself to become greatly concerned. Now that's faith, isn't it? Not to be concerned about what's going on in the world so much, but to trust that God is in control. To succeed in giving ourselves to God as much as He desires, we must constantly guard our souls. Now remember, our souls, in my theology, are our thoughts, our emotions, our memories, our beliefs, our actions. In addition to being involved in spiritual matters, the soul is involved in the things of the world. However, when we turn our backs on God, exposing our souls to the world, He will not so easily answer our call. That is, when we turn toward the world and seek our satisfaction and peace and joy from this very fickle world system, then we have put a separation between ourselves and God. We must turn back to the divine, to Christ consciousness, and then we easily hear the will of God, the call of God. When we are willing to accept God's help and guard our souls according to His desires, we may commune with Him whenever we like. So, I'm going to read more from this book as we go along, so that you understand more fully what his practice entails. But it is a practice of constantly, as often as we can, turning our thoughts toward the Divine One. Keeping our mind focused on what is holy, pure, and good, and not on the things of the world. Turning a grateful heart toward the Lord. He says, if we can, 1,000 times a day. And that would be more than once every minute. So that is the practice, to be focused on God no matter what we're doing. And so it's not a sitting meditation, it is turning our thought, our heart, our open heart to the Divine One continually, as often as we think of it during the day. And the more we practice that, the more often it happens. So I hope you liked your first taste of Brother Lawrence. If you haven't read his book and followed his spiritual leading in the past, and that you'll join with me again, and we will cover the information in this book rather thoroughly, and I hope you'll be there for all of that. And that's it for today. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye for now.